guys? Jake with TN Tactical. Come to another special review today. I've got something especially unique of something that has caught my attention recently. This was actually sent out to me by Weaponries, and essentially it turns your AR into a bullpup. Yes, this is in fact an AR-15 that has decided to identify as a bullpup. As far as I'm concerned, that's the only type of transition that I think is acceptable here on TN Tactical. Today we're going to go over all the specs and features of this particular setup here. We're going to also talk about some of my choices here with how I've got this set up and give my honest thoughts and impressions of how this system works out so that you can make the decision if it's worth your time and, more importantly, your hard-earned money. So, let's see how. Let's see how she does. So how did this video come about? I first saw this setup at the GOA Goals event in Knoxville of August 2024. And this chassis system actually ended up on my doorstep like early to mid-October. And then I quickly realized, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right. I don't have an upper that is buffer tubeless. Originally, I went with the Foxtrot mic 12.5-inch upper. Based on my research, Weaponries really recommends that you don't do anything less than 11.5 inches, because then you start running issues where, like, this part here, like, it's so short that it's like sticking out. They really recommend at least 11.5 inches. I went with 12.5 just to have a little bit of extra length because I figured that extra inch might help. There's no buffer tube back here, but they do give you this. This actually attaches to a 1913 style Picatinny rail back here. This Picatinny rail part actually comes with the Foxtrot mic upper, and then this thing that looks like a little hook tail thing comes from Weaponry. So if you have like a Jackal upper or Descent upper, anything that's got that pick rail in the back there, you can just slide it on. You basically screw two little indentation screws right here, use some blue Loctite. The downside to that is it essentially makes your setup here an SBR. So the way this thing works is you've got a bunch of screws in here. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 screws. There's actually not one in there, and I'll tell you why I did that. That's a personal choice. You got 10 screws that you have to unscrew, and then the whole thing kind of splits open, and you lay your lower receiver in there. You screw all the screws back in. You put another screw right here. That's actually so you can have your safety selector back here functioning and your trigger and all that properly. There is a rod that goes up through here. A rod is connected here, just like a regular bullpup system, an actual bullpup. It comes back here and pulls your trigger. You'll notice it's completely sealed up. There's no way you can accidentally pull that trigger. See that? It's all contained. At the end of this rod here is a little plastic bit that actually will pull the trigger for you. The cool thing about this system is they solve a problem that I've had with a lot of other bullpups. If you're familiar, if you've ever shot and pulled the trigger of a bullpup, you'll know that it's got very heavy, very uncomfortable triggers with lots of take up, lots of reset, lots of wall. It's just not a fun experience. The weight of the trigger of this whole setup is all dependent on how you build this system out. According to their website, and based on my experience, this whole trigger pull system with the rod adds about 1 pound of weight to your trigger pull. So if you use a regular mil spec trigger, like 5 or 6 pounds, it's going to be like 6 or 7 pounds. But if you go with a bear trigger, in this case I've got a 2.5 pound trigger, you will roughly have about a 3.5 pound trigger. Not bad at all. Another cool thing about this system, you can actually adjust how much take up there is. At first, I took all the take up out and had it like rock hard, barely any trigger pull to make it function. What I found was that it actually has some malfunctioning issues. The AR trigger needs a little bit of room to reset itself. Otherwise, you have to take the whole thing apart to try to reset that trigger. So I gave a couple millimeters to allow some leeway, some tolerance to actually function so that the trigger doesn't get hung up. Now going back to the screws here, like I said, there's 10 screws, and I said there's one missing here. And there's a good reason for that. This is a me problem, not really a chassis system problem. What I found was, with the way my trigger is, I went with one of those straight triggers. Basically, it's a straight trigger that comes down and there's a little L leg bar sticking out. Unfortunately, with that particular trigger, this screw right here was actually in the way of it being able to actually function. It was actually blocking it. So I took the screw out, and honestly, I've not had any problems at all with this setup working at all. It's been 100% fine. Now, originally I did use a regular curve trigger. It was a mil-spec trigger. It's very heavy, obviously, and I felt it with the system and the bullpup and all that. And it was not a fun experience at all. So I took that out and opted for the 2.5 to 3 pound trigger, cassette style trigger, of course, to make it a little bit more of an enjoyable shooting experience. Odds are you will not have to do that like I did. Now, and by the way, this is empty, as you see here. I was going to take that mag out because on this particular lower, I installed the ambidextrous mag release. Highly recommend the ambidextrous mag release. Otherwise, with this bullpup system, if you want to take the mag out, you got to take your hand off and hit the button right there that you normally hit with your index to take the mag out. You know what I'm saying? Just like regular AUGs and actual bullpups, they usually have a mag release right here, so that basically you take your thumb, you push here, pull it out, mag swap, and then you hit your reset right there for your bolt carrier grip. Now that's one thing I'm having an issue with, and it has nothing to do with the actual chassis system. This is a Foxtrot mic 16-inch upper issue, and that is, as I go to reset it here, I'll show you on this side. Let me put it back how it was here. So there is my bolt there. It's already back like as if the mag was empty, and I've replaced the mag with a fresh one. Can't really show you because I already shot all my rounds, but if you look in this B-roll footage, you'll see I'm having a hell of a bad time trying to get the bolt to actually function for me. It was not a good time at all. And that's because there's such little room back here to actually allow the bolt to come forward and catch a round. God, this thing. I hate this upper. Come on. What the f is this thing's problem? Seriously. It's upper. Like seriously. What in the f is this thing's problem? So I've been having to use the charging handle to actually pull it back at like just a little bit and then release it. But sometimes there was not enough room to actually pick up the round and drive forward. And there's no forward assist on this either, obviously. It sucks. It's not the chassis system's fault. This would be a sucky experience even if this was on a regular AR setup. Compare that to the 12.5-inch Foxtrot mic upper I've got. It has zero problems. Now again, this is the 16-inch upper, okay? This is how much rail space you have if you've got your handguard all the way to the edge where the threading starts of your barrel. Okay, so you're looking about maybe 6, maybe 7 inches. No, it's 6 inches, I can tell. Don't ask me how, but I can tell it's 6 inches. And this is how I've got mine set up. I've got one of the newer Enforce lights up there. I know Enforce gets shit on sometimes, but I like it. Seems to work pretty good. And because this is an actual 16-inch upper length, that it can have a vertical foregrip here. You know what I'm saying? We're good there. No problems. However you want to do it. C-clamp, grip it like that, whatever. So when you've got set up like this, it feels really nice and tight and really close. And it feels good. It feels really good. But it's not perfect. And there are some issues that I also want to talk about. If you've ever used a bullpup before, you know you've got it set up here. There's your ejection port right there. Shit is blasting like crazy. Is that the fault of the chassis system? Not really, but it's something to keep in mind because you will have audible shit blowing right next to you right there. And it's nerve-wracking, honestly, to have those explosions right there next to your face. God forbid something goes wrong, like you put a 300 blackout round or something in a 223 upper. Good grief. It just gets you a little bit closer to everything going on. And that's one thing that's a little bit concerning, but again, that's the nature of bullpups. I've got just a regular A2 flash hire. Not really a need for a brake on this thing. I imagine with the brake, this thing will be shooting out fireballs like crazy. I found the A2 flash hire to be just fine, but more importantly, when I first set this up, I had a suppressor on there. Now with this Foxtrot mic upper, it's not short stroke like the BRN 180. It's a regular direct impingement gas system, just a more compact design with no buffer tube. That was a mistake, because when I started firing it suppressed, holy crap, we all know about gas blowing back in your face. This shit is blowing in my face. All these little gaps, you know, where the air comes out is blowing in your face. It is freaking miserable. It is the worst shooting experience if you run this thing suppressed. That could be mitigated though if you go with the short stroke system or perhaps the PSA Jackal long stroke. Both of those might be good options, because the whole idea is you don't have all that hot gas blowing back. As you put a suppressor on, there's more pressure, and because that added pressure, it just makes this not a good, fun shooting experience. The whole reason why I even wanted to get this kind of setup, this little bullpup system, because it's so compact. It's something I wanted to scratch that suppressed bullpup itch. I don't want to run it suppressed. Hopefully in the future I will try to get one of the BRN 180s that just came out, the Gen 3 ones, or some other long or short stroke system to try it out and see how much gas there is. But I mean, you can see it here. If you look carefully here, do you see, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there is like the remnants of like all the carbon buildup and crap along the edge there where it's like spewing out. Like you can really see it really good right there. See all that crap right there? That's all from the carbon blowing back in my face when I had the suppressor on. Doesn't really do that when you've got like an A2 flash hire like this. By the way, you like the Mepro light I put on here? I did that to give it the IWI, Israeli Defense Force vibe to it. In addition to having the gas blowing back right in your face, another issue I did come across is the required height over bore whenever you're using any kind of optics on here. You need a lot of height over bore, because when you're aiming, you've got this in your shoulder, you see how low? Like this is me naturally holding it like I would for an AR. I've got to tuck my head down like this in order to make use of my optic. And this is the Mepro light, the M21. It kind of stands kind of high as it is. If you try to use a regular red dot, you're gonna have to get a significantly higher riser to make it comfortable for you to shoot. So keep that in mind when it comes time to mount your red dot or whatever optic you're using onto the top pick rail there. One issue that people have with the actual trigger system is that it just has one little screw back here holding the trigger bar that's going to hit the trigger in place. Some people are concerned that it may get loose, cause you to have a dead trigger whenever you pull the trigger. That is not really something I'm too worried about. It's more of a range toy kind of thing anyways. But if that were to happen, you would have to take out all 10 of those screws to get in there and open it up and actually make it work for you. Another important thing to note is you have to have a bottom mag pull slot that runs on the bottom here. If you look there, you've got your two things there. See that? They put a little hole there so you can reach it to pop open your lower and upper. But you also have an attachment that connects to your bottom mag pull rail, the M-lock slots there. 1, 2 more right there. And they're just like the ones back here, but these right here are going through and attaching directly to, let me just show you here. So there is the part right there I'm talking about. See how it connects to the bottom mag pull rail? It's got those two slots. That's where these two pins go through and they connect right there. Of course, this is just a regular Foxtrot mic upper. See, you can see my trigger is in there. The trigger bar is down in there. Now, you may have noticed that there's something going on with the safety. There's one there that we like to use, easy to reach. But there's also one back here. You have to make sure both safeties are actually on fire to make the gun work. This is the one that's part of the AR lower. This is the one that's part of the actual chassis system. And they pretty much feel the same. Now, the last thing I want to talk about here, and this might be the deal breaker for you, but I want to be up front and let you know, they sent this out to me for free. This chassis system normally comes at the price of $500. Yeah, $500 to make your AR into a Bullpup. It's a lot of money. The Foxtrot mic upper was about $500 as well. And then you've got your lower and your lower parts, your trigger, all that stuff. So maybe tack on another couple $100 there. 500, 500. It makes $1,200 altogether, roughly estimating. Your results may vary. So it puts it right in line with the cost of an actual Bullpup. Is it worth it? Let's say you're in a state that's not quite so gun friendly and it's hard to get lower receivers and stuff. I also think about places where you may not be able to have an SBR. And for whatever reason, because your state is gay, you have to have at least a 16-inch upper receiver. This is a great solution to that. This will allow you to do that rather cheaply and still have AR-15, so you can put an AR trigger, you can use AR parts. But if you live in a more free state, this may not be something you're interested in. I love it though, don't get me wrong. Would I use this for like home defense? I can't really say I would, just because I've got other stuff for that option. But if you need something compact for home defense, and you don't mind the fact that it's shooting 5.56 out of a 16-inch barrel, think about wall penetration, this might be a good choice for you. If you get a Foxtrot mic upper like I did, you may have some problems, or maybe a different one will work out. But the bottom line is, I do think this does have a place in the gun world. It may not be a good fit for everybody. Not everybody may think it's worth it, just like how some people think an FRT trigger is not really worth it. Bottom line is, I really like it. I really think this chassis system is really good, especially with how it helps with the trigger. $500 is a bit much to pay, especially when you can get a Bullpup for not much more after doing everything and making sure you got the right parts on here. One last thing I want to point out is this is a bufferless system. You can use a regular AR-15 upper. There's an option for that too. If you were to get this chassis system with the regular upper, you're going to be having it out there and it's going to be just like a regular AR-15. It is an option, but it's not really an option I would recommend. I think this is more or less the ideal set, the way God intended it to be. I like it when it works. Guys, that's going to wrap it today. If you enjoy this kind of content, make sure to like, subscribe, comment down below. What do you think about the Reap Weaponries Scy? I'd love to hear from you. We will see you next time.